respect to reducing abortions, have you given any thought to a moonshot project to create male contraceptives? Because I think that would probably reduce abortions a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing that I like to do is kind of frame it like this, because I can convince these guys, guys, we've got to legalize birth control over the counter. And I would say to men, I'm like, gentlemen, if in order for you to get birth control contraceptives, you had to undergo a government-mandated pelvic exam, I guarantee you we would have legalized over-the-counter birth control a long time ago. It's true, it's true.
Men have their babies.
It's none of the government's business. Ending the war on drugs is tantamount. It's very important. But that's also an excellent.
$1 billion,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you'd have it in 5 years.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah. Science is
just not spending the money. Every guy wants it. Raise your hand if you don't want it, guys.
Yeah, I think science is solves the problem. But in the meantime, we should always be pro-life, because we want to protect all human life, and that's what liberty is all about: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes.
Well, and contraception.
You know, the
abortion.
government that we've known all this time is so different from what the libertarian philosophy is, that I think a lot of people, including myself, kind of feel like, well, you're walking to the edge of a drop-off, and how do you transition? So for a specific on that, we have ghettos, we have institutionalized poverty in this country, and uneducated people, and people whose families grow up in prison. How do we transition into the vision of libertarian?
That's a great question, and I want to couch it in terms of what I want to do with my monetary policy as a way to discuss how alternative institutions might arise. So I obviously want to end the Federal Reserve System completely. Can I agree with But in order for us to end the Fed, we can't just push Rothbard's button and it's going to be gone overnight. We're going to have to allow institutions to spring up that will take care of the problems of monetary policy. Now, it's the same with social welfare. Social welfare has mostly been choked out because people assume that the government's doing it. That's what we pay taxes for. So in order for us to do this, we are going to have to reduce spending on these social welfare programs and get the government out of the way so that private institutions can raise up. You know, I'm not religious, but I think churches do a darn good job with charity. But we have delegitimized the role of the church in doing their charity. The Catholic Church wants to do a lot more charity than we allow them to do. And because of regulations, health regulations that we place on Catholic hospitals, for example, and adoption. The Catholic Church would love to be more involved with adoptions, but the state has taken it over. So in terms of how would alternative institutions arise, when I say I want to end the Fed, what I do is I abolish laws of legal tender, and what that does is it legalizes competition. So in your example, we need to find a way to legalize competition, or at least to incentivize it. Right now, competition isn't necessarily outlawed in the social sphere, but it's disincentivized. So we need to find a way to incentivize alternative institutions, free market institutions, to arise. You can't force it, because that's what the government does. But if there's no incentive for people to create these institutions, then they're not going to come up. There used to be, in terms for insurance, like health insurance, for example, we didn't used to have insurance schemes such as we did state by state. We had social clubs, and the social clubs would pool together like Rotaries. They would pull together and they would purchase, they would do basically insurance pools, catastrophic insurance. Those don't exist anymore. Why not? Well, it's because we have an insurance program, a licensed insurance program, state by state. You cannot purchase across the lines, comrade. The state must control this insurance. But in order for us to have social welfare programs that work, things like such as we did before the insurance schemes, we have to break up the monopolies. The insurance companies have monopolies. It's corporatism. It's a rigged system. It's to benefit the rich at the expense of the poor and the middle class. But it's all done through the heavy hand of the state. So the state is the enemy, and that's what we have to attack. Because in order for us to be able to afford to do private charity for others, we've got to stop getting taxed at 30–40% of our wages. So that's my argument there. It's kind of nuanced.
What about the Medicare and Social Security overhang?
Sorry, old people, but I want to cut it all.
Really?
1% spending cuts, yes. I'm not afraid. You know, I'm a millennial. I don't think I'm going to see Social Security. Let young people opt out. Let's pay out the people who have already paid in, and then let the younger generation opt out into the private market. Medicare and Medicaid, everybody in the government under my administration will take a 1% haircut. My spending plan is called the penny plan. And what it is it cuts 1 penny out of every federal dollar. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up. 1 penny out of every federal dollar, that is $7.9 trillion in savings over the next 10 years. We would have a balanced budget in 5 years. Let's do it. 1% across the board. Everybody takes a haircut. So that way NASA doesn't cry. That way Medicare and Medicaid doesn't cry. Housing and urban development. We're all just going to have to do more with less. That'll be on my inaugural speech, doing more with less. Just like I did at the LP, just like I did with the Cato Institute Atlas where I work, just like I did at Fox, just like I'm doing with my magazine. I don't have millions of dollars of money pouring into my magazine. I'm doing more with less. The government needs to operate the exact same way. Yes?
You said that you support ending the Fed. Do you support the end of the fiat system and moving back to the gold standard?
I don't support a gold standard, and the reason why is because it's still fiat in the sense that the government, if we go to a gold standard, is going to set the exchange rate. And the last time we let the government set the exchange rate, as soon as times got tough, what they do? They confiscated our gold. FDR took it all. So let's not tie our gold. I don't want to tie our gold to our system. I've been studying Austrian economics, and the Austrian scholars that I read, like Friedrich Hayek, they have postulated that we should return to a free market monetary system. This would mirror like what the Scottish system was like in the late 1700s. They have almost 100 years. They have a very stable, non-licensing bank scheme, and what it does is it allows any bank to set up a currency and compete. No central bank. So ending the Fed, in my perfect world, would be one where no banks are chartered by a Fed. Any bank can create their own currency and compete. So let the best man win. Let the best currency win. That's my idea.
Can I add to that? What about, apparently, I think it's something like 76.9% of our gold is supposedly in Forex, which is an international banking system. Would you pull out?
I don't know. Is that okay?
Well, it's okay to know or not know,
yeah,
but
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Part of the whole setup of Forex is that it allows other countries to draw on loans from that international system.
Sure, yeah, I'm familiar, but I mean, I don't know if I would pull out of that system.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, all right.
And most of what I'm trying to do is to educate people about the power of the presidency. This would probably require an act of Congress.
Okay.
There is one agency that I can abolish, though, immediately without having to go through Congress, and that's the DEA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the war on drugs. And here's the deal. Here's how you do it. These are the lawyers that I speak with, and they say all I have to do is set the federal drug schedule to 0. All drugs across the board, 0. Federal war on drugs, done. It's over. And then the DEA has no authority to prosecute. Sends it back to states. And then it might be, we'd have federalism, the states would set their own drug laws, and while that might be sounding exciting to you guys, just remember how these states can be sometimes tyrannical.
Especially Iowa.
Yeah, right? Like Texas might execute you for looking at a joint. You know, California might make it required to do cocaine off of a baby's head. So, just know that federalism has its own problems. Yes?
How about CRISPR and regulation of human genome editing?
Would I regulate it?
Oh, right now the University of Iowa is doing trials where they're editing human genomes for blindness, but they're going to be doing this in the womb very soon. We have the technology. What should the libertarian stance be for that sort of regulation? I don't know the answer.
Laissez-faire. I mean, again, as long as you're not initiating violence and harming someone's individual rights, I think that we all want science to advance, human health in order to alleviate suffering. If we're curing blindness, then yeah, absolutely. Please, yes.
Yeah, I hear a lot of social welfare and cutting spending, and that's fantastic, and that's what libertarians stand for. But what are your plans for the IRS code? IRS code has so many loopholes for corporate welfare that's what makes our country suffer. Starting with exporting our jobs overseas and ending with just loopholes for tax purposes for the corporations. What are your plans with the IRS code?
Right, so again, the Congress has the power of the purse, the Congress writes the laws. I would work with Congress to send me legislation. Hopefully these are people like Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Justin Amash, Thomas Massey. These are the people who are going to send me the legislation that I want. And the legislation that I want is to cut the taxes that we have. And how I'd like to do that is to get rid of the payroll tax entirely so that we can incentivize employers to hire more. If you've ever had to do payroll, it is egregious how much you have to pay for the taxes to hire one employee. You can hire another employee for what you pay in the taxes of another one. So I want to cut the payroll taxes so that small businesses can compete. I also want to cut the corporate income tax rate in half. It's 39% in the United States. That's the highest in the industrialized world. So we need to cut the corporate income tax rate, I think, at least in half. And when it comes to the personal income tax, I don't support an income tax. But I don't think that Gary's fair tax scheme is the way to go either. I would prefer us to move to a flat rate for now, on the path to eliminating the income tax entirely. And what this would do is this would have everyone pay the same flat rate, 15% across the board, no loopholes, no deductions, no exemptions, 15% across the board, 3x5 no card. They do it in France, except their rates are insanely high because they're socialists. But everybody knows how to pay their taxes. I mean, we're basically forcing people to self-incriminate every time they fill out an IRS form because you're going to do something wrong, and we need to stop making criminals out of innocent Americans. Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, do you support Trump wants to have like a tax floor of like 100,000? Like if you make less than 100,000, IRS is out of your life. No. Do you support some sort of floor like that, just to basically just get rid of half the IRS?
No, I don't. No, I don't support that. I think everybody should have to pay the same rate across the board. No tax floors, no exemptions, nothing where anybody is. If you make less than $30,000 a year, then you don't pay. I understand like the attempt for humanitarianism there, but it's not. That's not equality before the law.
Well, it's what we had before 1910 or so. I mean, the corporations paid excise taxes when they import and export goods, but the common man didn't pay.
Right.
Except through trade.
Sure. Yeah. So, but tax everybody who makes over 100 grand. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there was no tax on labor in 1910.
Right. So, but what you're saying is that if you make over $100,000, then you should be paying taxes. So you're still punishing hard work and success. I think everybody should, I don't think anybody should pay income tax, ideally. But if we have an income tax, everybody should pay it, same rate, across the board. That way even people who are poor, are invested. That way they might go out and vote. They might get involved and see, hey, I'm not getting back because there's no longer is there any social welfare, no longer are there any exemptions, deductions, child credits, marriage credits, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, wow, I'm not getting out of this what I'm paying into it. So maybe people will rise up and say, hey, we need to demand more of our government because we're all paying this rate and we're all in it together. We're fostering class warfare. The type of progressive income tax that we have right now is that Marxist. It is Marxist class warfare, and it engenders hostility, and it engenders elitism, because when you get into a higher tax bracket, then you look down on everybody, and when you're in a lower tax bracket, you look up with envy at those in the higher. Everybody's the same. Okay? We're not all equal in terms of our capabilities, but we should be equal before the law and the government, and especially when it comes to the tax system. We should all be invested equally.
Yeah. Question of minimal government versus zero government.
I love the idea of anarchy, anarcho-capitalism, is what we call it. I have tons of friends who are anarcho-capitalists. I don't consider myself one. I consider myself if any of you have heard of Robert Nozick, I've been inspired by Robert Nozick, Anarchy, State, Utopia. And so I come down on the side of minarchy, and the reason why is because if a truncheon is hitting me on the head, I don't care if it's a private truncheon or a public truncheon, I just don't want to be truncheoned. And so to me, the idea, people say, what is the purpose of government? And to me, the purpose of government is to protect individual liberty, not to keep us safe, but to protect our natural rights. Those natural rights are numerous, multitudinous, more than could ever be written in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. But I do think that we need law. The reason why I think we need law is because in order for us to legitimately prosecute someone for what is a crime, you would need a legitimate lawful authority. So in order for us to have a lawful authority, we need someone who has been nominated to have that authority. It doesn't mean that I think we need a wild big government or an interventionist foreign policy. It means that I think that we need a small government dedicated to protecting our natural rights. And that's because, and I think that's civilization. Anarchy to me is a return to the state of nature, what we had before civilization. I happen to like the benefits of civilization. I think that people should be able to secede. The Amish in this country, they have a wonderful community. I wish the anarcho-capitalists were half as productive as the Amish. You know, I mean, we'd probably be a lot freer. Instead, they want to argue with me about the NAP. I love the idea of a classical libertarian republic, a loosely affiliated federation of states with like Jefferson called it, a laboratory of democracy. Vote with your feet. If California stinks, go to Texas. If you don't like Texans, go to New York. This is what is beautiful. The founders envisioned this. The problem that we've had in the past is that we've had, I'm going to use some really wonky terms here, super state versus super state. So the old battles of the past for the United States have been world powers versus world powers. There are no other world powers right now. So in essence, if you're familiar with John Maynard Keynes, we have a Keynesian system of economics here in the United States now. Keynesian economics was a step down from National Socialism and communism. And what happened was that after World War II, the battle was between John Maynard Keynes and the National Socialists and the Communists. Well, National Socialism was defeated in World War II, but the Communists still reigned supreme. So the founders envisioned a humble federation of republics where the states would have interstate competition. And we haven't really had that yet because we've been competing with the world, but we don't really need them anymore. We need them perhaps for a system of trade, free trade, but product development happens here in the United States, patents, trademarks, copyrights, all happens here in the United States. We are the creator nation. Now, if we can get away from a Keynes versus Marx battle, though, like we had during the Cold War, this was John Maynard Keynes versus the ideas of Karl Marx, and get towards a more Hayek versus Keynes battle, which is where we need to be, then the United States' dynamic system of interstate competition can emerge. And when we end the war on drugs, Colorado will legalize it, you know, Texas will execute you, you know. Again, but with your feet, vote with your feet. And these little governments will compete with one another. If you've ever read the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton, while I don't agree with him a lot, central banking and all that stuff, he had some beautiful reasons for why he thought that a unitary republic, a monarchist republic, would be stronger than an anarchist federation of colonies or colonies that were states, that were sovereign states. And I would encourage you to read those. Most of it has to do with very libertarian principles, like the states were less likely to go to war with one another if we were bound. But they went to war with one another, and we all saw that ended in 1860. Yeah.